Hi everyone, my name is David Rao and I'm the music teacher who blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. You can also find my ideas obviously here on Facebook if you're watching on Facebook Live, on Instagram if you're watching on Instagram Live, or a variety of other places when you search my name or Make Moments Matter. Thanks to everyone who's listening to the recap of this on the podcast or who is watching months later, either in the Facebook archive or on YouTube. However you're listening to this, and for whatever reason you're listening to this, thank you so much for coming along and joining me to talk about music education. I have had such a really amazing time this year sharing on these Musical Mondays videos, these Monday Night Live videos. It's been such a blast to come and share my lessons, to share the techniques and things that I'm doing in my classroom, to share what's working, what's not working. I've learned a lot just by reading all of your comments, seeing your dialogue as you talk to one another in the comments section. It's hilarious to see those conversations going as I'm like talking at my phone or at my iPad, but it's so much fun. And I've had just a blast doing this. In the fall, I did 15 live videos across the course of the fall semester. This is video 15 for the spring semester, and this is actually my last live video for the year. Just because I know there are more weeks in the school year, but between end of year honors festival and field trips and field days and all the packing up and inventory, everything that happens at the end of the year is so busy for so many of us. That I just know that it's tough, and I'm going to be super busy too. So I feel like this is a great place to end it. That means I've done 30 videos this year long and had 30 great conversations with all of you. So it feels like a good place to end. So as this is a fun sort of capping off end of the year, when the video is done, or whenever you're done watching, you're ready to sign off. I have a 3-minute quick survey I'd love for you to take that gives me just more information about what you take from this and what's valuable and maybe what I should do less of. So if in the comments section on Facebook or on my LinkedIn profile, there's a button that says take this quick survey. It's a bit.ly link. And if you take that, it takes 3 minutes. It's anonymous. If you want to leave your name on the comments, you can. If you have questions that you want me to follow up on, please do leave your name and contact information. But otherwise, it's anonymous, and there is a thank you gift at the end if you do take the time to do that. So that's there at the end if you'd be willing to do that. That gives me so much great feedback and lets me know what you find valuable. So in the video today, I'm ready to jump right in. I'm going to share all my kindergarten through 5th grade lessons that I'm doing currently right now. And then I'm going to do a deep dive into my 2nd grade lesson and all the things that I use in that lesson, all the resources and extras and games, everything that goes along with it. So let's jump in and talk about kindergarten. So kindergarten last week, basically this week is a building on of the last week. Throughout the year, I've done a lot of like very small games that are just sort of have a smaller focus. And at this point, I'm starting to get into what I'm going to start doing more in 1st grade, which is you take a song in 1 week, and the next week you build, and the next week you build. Because kindergarten, a lot of what I've done this whole year is take a song and do more with it so that they sort of get the idea of what is music and they're comfortable with music. There are a lot of songs in kindergarten throughout the year that come back. And that we use over and over. Our opening song, our ending song, our transition songs, those are all things that I want to sort of build in and really bake in kindergarten. But now I'm taking songs and I'm sort of doing what we'll do in 1st grade, which is you learn it in 1 week and you build on it the next, but it maybe doesn't last 7 weeks, it just lasts a couple, and there's a lot of really more intense building. So in the last week, we came in, we did our circle song, all of that, and then we did the song Looby Loo. Last week was a really simple breakdown version of it. In fact, I did a video all about that. And in this week, what we do is we come in and in a circle shape, we do that song, and pretty much immediately I give 2 examples, because it's sort of like the Hokey Pokey if you're not familiar with that song. But sort of right away, we put our hand in, we take our hand out, give our hand a shake, 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 and turn about. I come up with 2 ideas that are inspired by my choices, and then I take over those 2 and say, hand, and then maybe the next time I do leg, just so that they get used to that cycle, basically, of the verse, chorus, and choosing body parts. And then right into it, I let them start choosing. I say, who can raise their hand with an idea of what we could add in? What would be a great next thing for our song? And kids are immediately coming up with elbow or head or shoulders. And you know, I do see a lot of the ideas that we did in the last lesson, them just parroting that, you know, oh, I remember last time we did knees. Let's do knees again. Great. Or, you know, last time we did elbows. Let's do elbows again. Great. Okay, you know, for me, that's a win. They're remembering what we did before. They're bringing it back. They're making the choice to bring it back. They're raising their hand to volunteer an answer. That's a win. But I also love when kids will say, let's do our back. Well, we didn't do that last time. So you put your back in, you take your back out, you give your back a shake, 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 and turn yourself about. I love when they come up with new body parts or new ways to do this song. I had a kid the other day say something, it was like eyelid, and I was like, oh, what do you think that would look like? It was fun to see what they came up with. But whether or not they're just saying what we did the last time or saying something very rudimentary or coming up with something very creative, I'm just glad that they're involved in the process, because it means that they're singing, they're thinking about what we could add, they're on theme, they're not stopping and saying like, yesterday we rolled Easter eggs, because that's where they could go, but instead they're sticking with the song and going with it. So that makes me feel really good at this time of year that kindergarten is able to sort of focus longer on the song and come up with new actions. So then I have them sit. I've had on my shelf these bells for a while. I was going to say I got them just recently. I didn't. I've had them for a while. But they've been sitting for a while. I talked about these several weeks ago. These are part of the preschool prodigy set that I talked about early on in the semester. But these desk bells are really fun because there's the diatonic scale. So what I do is, you know, we've done a lot of steady beat this year, so I say, or I tell the kids, you keep the steady beat and I'll play it on the bell. So they're going on their knee, they're doing a steady beat. So then I go to the next bell, and they're just sitting on my shelf. And they keep that steady beat, and I emphasize again, you know, steady beat can be fast or it can be slow. It can't speed up or slow down in the middle of the beat. It has to stay the same the whole time. And so, you know, I'll give them different options. As I go up the scale, they're keeping the beat. And I go all the way up, and we do lots of different options. And then I say, you know, I love these bells, but they're called desk bells. They have to sit. They can't come with me. I can't take them to the other side of the room. They have to stay here, which is not, it's fun, but there's another kind of bells I wanted to show you. And these are bells that they look sort of like my other bells, don't they? They look sort of the same. They're sort of the same shape, sort of a cone shape. You know, they sort of look the same. But what's different is they don't have any button you push. Instead, you get to take this thing, and we've talked about mallet versus stick quite a bit. I say you take this thing, and they say it's a mallet, right? And you get to go with them. Those other bells can't go with you, but these bells can go anywhere you want them to. That's one of the reasons I like calling them go-go bells. And like the dad joke in me loves that, but also that's a technique for remembering vocabulary. That's something we did. I remember doing that in my high school Spanish classes, trying to associate words to help you remember things. Well, kids are going to forever remember these are called go-go bells because we're going around the room. And so what we then do is we transfer the beat to our feet. And the first couple of beats we do non-locomotor. We do stationary one spot, but our feet are keeping the beat. And then we actually start moving around the room with the beat. So I'll keep the beat. And the kids are in their feet are moving around the room, and they're going around the room. So I know it's a silly way to remember go-go bells is to say that we're going around the room, but kids will remember that. And that's not, and I even say to kids, that's not why they're called the go-go bells, but what a fun way to remember. And they think about that as we go. So they're going around the room. And then once we've done that for a few minutes, it's a great chance to get some movement in. It's a great chance to reinforce steady beat, to try locomotor versus non-locomotor, to show them a new instrument. All of those things are good. Then we sit down and we remember the Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. Because that's what we did the last week with a mallet on the glockenspiel, and I shared about that last week in the video lesson. So I talk about the mallet and how the mallet goes up, and we rehash that. I pull the glockenspiel out, and we go through the poem again. And I modified it a little bit, if you remember from last time. And the modification goes like this. Jack be nimble, Jack be quick, Jack jumped over the candlestick. Jack jumped high, and then on the glockenspiel I go bing, 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 bing. Jack went low, or Jack jumped high, bing, 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 bing. Jack jumped low, bing, 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 bing. Jack jumped over and burned his toe. Ow! So the bing, 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 I added that in. That's not in the original, but that's because they're going up on the glockenspiel and down on the glockenspiel as he travels, as Jack jumps and Jack does his thing. So then the kids get to add some actions. So instead of going... They could pretend they've got a Jack, and they could go, Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. Jack jumped over the candlestick, where they wag their finger back and forth. But they could also transfer that to a steady beat on their knees. So Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. Jack jumped over the candlestick, where they're just keeping that beat on their knees. And then we go, Jack jumped high, they clap high. So they clap above their head. And then we say, Jack jumped low, and they clap lower by their knees. Jack jumped over and burned his toe, and on ow, they clap hard, and they go, ow! So the whole thing looks sort of like this if you're a kindergartner. You're doing the steady beat on your knees. Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. Jack jumped over the candlestick. Jack jumped high, clap, 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 clap. Jack jumped low, clap, 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 clap. Jack jumped over and burned his toe. Ow! And then we transfer and we get out some sticks. Some rhythm sticks. I have a whole bucket of multicolored rhythm sticks, and they get to transfer everything they've just done to the rhythm sticks. So the steady beat on their knees becomes a steady beat on the sticks. Clapping high, they just move the sticks high. Low is low. Jack jumped over and burned his toe. Ow! And so they just click at the end. It's just a lot of clicking in different places, in different planes, high, low, medium, with a steady beat, not with a steady beat. And it's fun because it's a lot of different things in there. It's the steady beat, it's different planes, it's movement, it's all sorts of things. But also it's control of the sticks, which they are not good at, and they have not had a lot of experience. So it's a fun thing to add in. One of the other things that I do in this lesson is I teach them different places to put the sticks when we're not playing. So there's the ever favorite shoulder holders, where they put the sticks on their shoulders in rest position. There's under armor, where they stick them under their arms in their armpits. But I like that one. A kid told me that one, under armor. There's antenna, where you can have them stuck on their head to look like bug antenna. You could do unicorn. I like cool kid pose, where they just cross their arms with one stick in each hand. They can do Lumiere, which is the candlestick from Beauty and the Beast. You can't really see it, but you have one stick in each hand. There's knee position. I mean, you could come up with all these really silly things. You could do bicycle handles, where they have the two sticks in their hands and fists on each end, and they just pretend like they're riding a bike. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but it's to keep them from clicking and doing rhythms or whatever, or just being silly or smacking on the floor, hitting each other when you're in between repetitions of the poem. Just something for them to do. So it just teaches them that their sticks are quiet, their sticks are in control, they are in control of their sticks, and if they're not, they lose their sticks. So this is just a chance for us to be able to do that of, you're in control, you keep them, you're not in control, you lose them. And then at the end of class, they meet a brand new friend who looks similar to one of their other friends and looks like someone who they might know, but please don't call her the Easter Bunny, because she's very sensitive around this time of year. And up pops my little white puppet, and she introduces herself and says, "Hello, boys and girls. I am so glad to be with you today. Do you know who I am?" And they say, "Yes, you're the Easter Bunny." I go, No. I am not the Easter Bunny. That is my cousin. That is not me. And so the instrument bunny takes them through and talks about how she is not the Easter Bunny. And she pulls out an instrument, and she's holding in her hand a lavender-colored egg shaker. And they all go, "Wait, no, you're the Easter Bunny." And she's, No. I take care of the instruments. I am in charge of the instruments. I'm the instrument bunny. And so she puts that down, and she comes back, and I have a little castanet that looks like a little lavender-colored butterfly, and they associate that with spring, and they go, "Wait, are you the Easter Bunny?" And I may be encouraged. I'm going, "Wait, you're white and fluffy and you're holding an egg. Are you I am not the Easter Bunny, I am the Instrument Bunny. Anyway, the Instrument Bunny is funny because she'll come back in the next couple lessons and can introduce any instrument. And also, and this is why I love her, she is in charge of the instruments to make sure that the instruments are played safely, that we are careful with the instruments, because these instruments, if they're broken, they maybe won't be replaced. She has to take them to the instrument hospital and all of that. So if a kid is not being safe with the rhythm sticks or anything else, out jumps the Instrument Bunny, and she can go and talk to the kid and say, "Excuse me, Jeremy, what are you doing with that stick? Are you being careful with that stick? Are you in control, or is it in control of you?" And so that she can have a talk with the kid. It's me not having a talk with the kid. It's the Instrument Bunny, in a funny way, having that conversation with a kid, just try and bring them back to where we need to be as far as control of the instrument. But it's one of those ways that puppets can sort of serve as a classroom management tool and be in there when and not me having to take over, so it doesn't damage my relationship with the kid, but the bunny could take over. So you could just use any bunny you already have. You could use, if you bought the little Dutch rabbit that I've shown a lot this year from Folk Manus, if you already have that, you could use that. But this is one that I think I got on like a teacher like garage sale, or like it was in the lounge and nobody wanted it, and so I took it. But it does look like the Easter Bunny, so like perfect for this time of year, especially when the first instrument she pulls out is the egg shakers, because then they're like, wait, no, these are eggs. So it's just a funny thing to have, and it's great to have in the next few lessons. She'll come back again, and then if we do Jack Be Nimble, we do it with eggs next time, she can be a part of that. Or if we do Jack Be Nimble with mallets, or if we do, the Instrument Bunny can sort of be the connective glue that brings that all together, and then we'll, can reprimand or can remind them of the right behavior, all of that as needed. So I actually did a whole blog post about that, and I think I did a podcast about it too. And on the links page, which is makemomentsmatter.org/video/musical Monday recap, or you can just find the link in the caption for these videos. On that page, I've linked to the Instrument Bunny blog post. So if you want to read more about that, how I did that, and the songs I integrated the first time I did it, you can see that on my blog. Okay, so that's kindergarten. We get through quite a bit in that first lesson, or in that lesson, which is great. First grade is another one where we take what we've already done and we expand upon it. So all the things that I shared about in the previous couple weeks are really what we're still sort of doing, but we're just making it broader and taking it more places. So we've done Here Comes a Bluebird, and I shared before that the bluebird comes out on a little mallet. I have a little bluebird finger puppet that I love, but and the kids get to take the puppet, but I don't like when they put their grubby little fingers in it. So I've shared this several times, but I just put it on a mallet, and then the kid can grab the mallet and take the mallet and fly the bird around the room and hand it off to the next child very, very quickly and easily, and I can sanitize the wood part of the mallet. So I love doing this, but if you do just one puppet flying around the circle to do this switching game, it takes forever. So the version of the song I do is a different version from some people, but it goes, "Here comes a bluebird flying through the window, hey, diddle-dum-a-day, day, day. Find a little partner, tap them on the shoulder, hey, diddle-dum-a-day, day, day." So one kid walks around the circle holding the bluebird, they tap the kid on the shoulder, and whoever they tap, they hand the bluebird to, and then they sit in their spot. And my rule is, as they're going around and tapping, if they tap someone on the shoulder who's already gone, that kid goes, and then they shake their head, and then the bluebird just goes to the next kid. And if that kid is also gone, that kid shakes their head. No, with no verbal cue, with no like no or I've gone, they just shake their head, and then it go to the next kid, the very next kid, and that just makes it simple and quick. So that's what the kid with the bluebird does. And we always say, you don't get to choose who you stop on. You don't stop on your best friend. You just stop when you hear, "Find a little partner." On that word partner, you have to stop wherever you are and hand the bluebird, tap them on the shoulder and then hand the bluebird to whoever that is. But that takes forever. So instead, after 2 or 3 times with the bluebird, I say, "Oh, I think I hear another person singing who wants to come and join us." And it's the robin. And the robin comes in, and then I say, "Oh, the robin wants to do this game too, but it'd be weird if we go, here come the bluebird and the robin, or here comes the bluebird and also the robin flying through the window. Doesn't that make this song so weird?" And the kids go, "Yeah, it's weird." So I say, let's just change the word bluebird to songbird. Here comes the songbird flying through the window, because they're technically called songbirds because they sing their little songs. They're pretty birds. So that makes it sort of an easy transition, but also it cuts the time in half for how long this song takes, because I have 2 puppets going around. You could add a third. I know there's a folk band as finger puppet for a cardinal. I think I need it, but there's one of those too. So you could, add as many birds as you want. Kids could go multiple times if you want, but this is nice because then this time all the kids go through at least once. And actually, usually at the end, I have one kid who then is holding both birds, and they get to walk around holding both birds. And that time I change the words to, here comes a bluebird flying through the window, hey, diddle-dum-a-day, day, day. Find the little blue cup, put them in the blue cup, hey, diddle-dum-a-day, day, day, because that on my desk is a blue tumbler, and that's where the finger puppets live. So that kid gets to fly the birds over and put them in the cup, which is sort of fun. So that goes pretty quickly because, like I said, we sang this in a previous lesson, so we're just bringing it back. We're just remembering how it goes, and it's just a chance for kids to sort of mix up a little bit. Today I had 2 girls sitting next to each other who were talkers, and I was like, oh, gosh, I do not want them to sit next to each other this whole time. So I made sure that when it was my turn to hit the word partner, I ended up on one of them, and I gave one of them the bluebird. I was like, yes, you're not going to be next to each other. Amazing, because I gave you the bluebird, and you're no way you're going to end up with your friend, right? So that girl goes around, finds a new place. Somehow, the second girl, when she got the puppet, she landed right next to her friend. I don't know how it's possible, but anyway, the nice thing about this song is that it mixes kids up usually. Not for me today, but it usually mixes kids up a little bit, and it's a chance for them to be in control of the puppet, to sing, to move. It's just a fun little song. So once we do the Bluebird, we go back and we do London Bridge again. I shared about that a few weeks ago, how we do London Bridge. Again, this is just a rehash and reminding them, but one of the reasons that I do this is, again, it's sort of a control of follow the rules of the game, because there is a part where me and a student will be the London Bridge, and our hands will come down and we'll lock a kid in the bridge, right? That's the fun of the game. But there's always that one kid who's like, I am going to be under the bridge. And so to sort of just keep them on track of, you got to follow the rules of the game, got to do the rules of the game, got to do I'm pretty strategic about, if you're going to wait, I will, as a smart teacher, can slow down the song, sing the song, whatever. Sometimes the bridge will move. If a kid is just like standing waiting, and I'll just like start walking, and the other kid who's the other side of the bridge is like, oh, I guess the bridge is going, and we'll move, and then it's less predictable. But if they're, kids trying to game the system so they're the ones caught in the bridge, I don't love that. So anyway, but it's just another chance for kids to sing, to move, and to do a fun thing, and then end up with partners a little bit. We then go into Rig-A-Jig-Jig, which I shared again on another week. But this one goes, as I was walking down the street, down the street, down the street, a brand new friend I happened to meet. Hi-ho, hi-ho, hi-ho. A rig-a-jig-jig and away we go, away we go, away we go. A rig-a-jig-jig and away we go. Hi-ho, hi-ho, hi-ho. And the very first time we did this, we was just partnered off the whole time with the same partner. And we did all the actions where we walked in place, and then we found our brand new friend. We did hi-ho, hi-ho, hi-ho. And the very first time we just did rig-a-jig-jig and away we go, away we go, away we go. A rig-a-jig-jig and away we go. Hi-ho, hi-ho, hi-ho. Which was kids in their own place, not holding each other's hands. Just like fists balled up, shaking back and forth and doing a little wiggle, and then swaying on the away we go, away we go. So on this lesson, after that, we then grab hands, so kids are holding hands, and they're going back and forth with their hands and swishing to the side. And then for hi-ho, 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 they turn and they spin around in their spot and end up where they are, right? So in this lesson, we sort of take it to the next level. So we remember what we've done, we find our partner, we do all of that. And my procedure, this is another way for me to take time to talk about how do we find a partner. And so I take time to do that with the kids. I say, everyone's hand up. We all do hands up. And I say, great. Now, when it's time to go find a partner, you find someone whose hand is up. And if their hand is up, that means they don't have a partner. So you can take their hand and you can both put your hands down, and now hooray, you have a partner. But if you're walking around and someone says, will you be my partner? You should put your hand down and say, yes, I'll be your partner. And if they walk over and say, will you be my partner? And you turn away and ignore them and pretend they're not there, that's not a nice thing to do. That's a rude thing to do. You don't ignore them. You say, yes, of course I'll be your partner. Because you're only going to be their partner for like 2 minutes. And then you'll switch to a new one. So if it's not someone who you always work with super well, just say, okay, I'll be great. I'll make this work. And try it. But you never go like this and pretend that person's not there and walk away. And we talk about all of those things, like if you already have a partner and you see your best friend, you don't abandon the part you already have. You know, we go through some of those things because it happens. But my basic rule is if your hand is up, you don't have a partner. Once you've got a partner, you bring your hand down. And then if there's anyone who can't find a partner, you keep your hand up and you can walk to the lost and found, which is the smart board. You just walk up to the smart board and you find someone else there who's also lost, and they become your partner. So we talk about all that partner stuff, but the continuation of Rig-A-Jig-Jig is you take hands and you then do a spin where you're holding hands, Rig-A-Jig-Jig, away we go, Rig-A-Jig-Jig, away we go, hi-ho, hi-ho. At the very end, you hold hands and you spin under your hands together, and you make, I don't know what that's called, ring the dish rag or something. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but you go under and over your hands, if that makes sense. And the final step of that is then you walk away and find a new partner with every verse. That's the trickiest thing. So I make sure that before we ever get to that, we are really good at singing the words. We're really good at all the rudimentary actions. We're even good at, taking kids' hands, moving back and forth, and doing the spin. Dish rag! See, I knew that was right. Thanks, Kelsey, for supporting me in that. But we do all of those things first, so we're really good at the actions before we ever switch to new partners, because that adds a whole level of chaos. So we have to repeat that procedure of your hand up as you're walking and singing until you find your partner and you bring your hands down, and then we can do the actions together. But it's a real trick, but I think for the sake of scaffolding, you have to make sure they can sing it. You have to make sure they can do the actions with a partner before you ask them to go find new ones. And that'll just make everything 1,000% more successful. And that's the end of my first grade lesson. Oh, and the last thing to go even further with that lesson is you change as I was walking down the street to as I was skipping down the street, as I was galloping down the street, as I was tiptoeing down the street, whatever, until you use as many options as you want. But that song can go on forever. So use as many of those options as you want, but I always try and move slowly into that song. I'm going to skip second grade because I'm coming back to that in just a second. Third grade, we come in, we do echoing back and forth, several versions where I clap, they clap, I clap, they clap, and then longer version where it's instead of 4 beats, it's 8 beats. And we get into a point where they are improvising the last 4 beats. They're using either clap, snap, or pat, but I start the first 4 beats, they have to echo that exactly, and then the last 4 they get to choose, which they love. But it's just something that over time, the more we've done echoes, the more we've done improvisation, now I've given them all of the skills to get to that point to be able to go, okay, great, I can do the last 4. So this is where we're at now as they're improvising parts of it. And then we run into Little Liza Jane. And what I do in this lesson, this is the first time we've done it this year, so Little Liza Jane, I talk about Liza, what that name means. Eliza's her real name, and Liza's her nickname, and she's actually the small one because her mom's the big Liza, and she's the little Liza. And I just go into a little bit of the words of things before we actually do much of the song, because this is one of those songs that I feel like if I don't talk a little bit about the vocabulary, it just flies over their head. I don't want them to sing. I don't want them to sing a song if they can't understand the lyrics or know what they're singing about. So in this lesson, I take the time to say, like, Eliza is a girl's name, and Liza is her nickname, and her mom's name is Liza, and she's Lil Liza, because her mom is Big Liza, and she's Lil Liza. And we sometimes talk about, like, Benjamin and Ben Jr. or Benjamin and Benny or whatever. We make those connections so they understand, like, oh yeah, you can have nicknames, and your mom or dad can be named the same name as you. It's just real world connections. And we also talk about streetcar because that shows up in the song. We talk about Baltimore because that shows up in the song. Again, I don't want them to just say, like, I know a girl in Baltimore. If Baltimore, if they don't know what that is, that could be a country. It could be a store, So we talk about Baltimore. It's a city in Maryland. Oh, cool. Here it is on a map. I just pulled out my map real quick. There it is. Oh, wow. It's a city. And then go on. And that can be the extent of it. You don't have to go like, it's the set of Hairspray. You don't have to go into like some detailed like, Baltimore, let me tell you about it. The Baltimore Orioles. Like, you don't have to do any of that, but just like, give them a little bit of context. One fun thing I do is we talk about streetcars, because there are streetcars not too far from us, but we also, more often, kids see trains in my town, in my city. And so we talk about the differences. I pull up a quick video that I found of a Kansas City streetcar, which just went in like 3 years ago. I used to live in Kansas City. It was a big deal. So when I lived in Kansas City, I showed the video, but it's a great video because when they put it in, they're trying to like explain to people throughout Kansas City, like, when you come to downtown, it's free to ride. Here's what it's going to look like. So they made this cool little introductory video, which is perfect to pair with this song to talk about streetcar really, really quickly. So we do the song, we sing, they learn the parts, and then we just do a basic little body percussion thing, where we do right, clap, left, clap, down, and the down is a pat. So right hand out, clap, left hand out, clap, pat, clap, pat, clap, patting your knees. And we do that. We do it while we sing. They're just honestly air high-fiving me with their right hand and their left hand, and then parroting back that action as we sing. And then it transfers to stand up and do it, and then do it with a partner. So by the time we're at the end of our lesson, they're able to sing all of the words, they're able to do the parts, they're able to add with their partner the right, clap, left, clap, down, clap. And if they get all of that, and we have 10 minutes left, or 15 minutes left, or whatever, in the end of this lesson, what I have them do is to come up with their own version of the actions. So maybe they'll do right hand clap, left hand clap, elbow tap clap, elbow tap clap. Or maybe they'll do right hand clap, left hand clap, foot tap, high five. I don't know. They get to come up with, but again, this is taking from the beginning of the lesson of I do the first 4, you come up with your own 4. And they get to do that then with body percussion or with their partner, and it's really fun for them to be able to like, oh, I get to choose. And I say, yeah, you got to choose. But you got 3 minutes, so don't take too long. And then they get some ownership by the end. They get to have the movement that's just based on the easy little song. And they're singing, they're moving, and they've built up throughout the lesson. In the next lesson, we'll bring in some Orff instruments. We'll add an accompaniment pattern. We'll rotate kids through, and we might have a little movement in a circle shape, which is fun. And we can do switching spots and all sorts of stuff. But it's just a very simple version of that song. You could add extra verses if you want. I have a favorite folk song set for that. So that's nice because it gives some of those visuals like the streetcar, and it gives a nice visual for little Liza and big Liza. We talk about the name Eliza in that folk song set. So that's all there to give context, and I use that usually in this first lesson or a little bit in the next lesson as sort of a recap of what do you remember. And having, even if I just display the first slide of that PowerPoint in this current lesson, then when I bring it back in the next lesson, that's a visual cue of we're doing the same thing, and we can, I can bring in some context for that. So that's something that I for sure use in this lesson, even if I'm not like, okay, let's click through all the slides. I might just use 1 or 2 in this lesson to give a little bit of context, and then to bring it back in the next lesson, having that visual up there really, really helps. 4th grade, I talked about last time, or the time before, I talked about doing the Titi-Toria, which is the stick tossing, clapping game that the Maori of New Zealand do, the Maori, the indigenous people of New Zealand. And in that first lesson, I had a favorite folk song set for that, which is the E Papa Waiari, which is one of their traditional songs. And in that PowerPoint, it shows the kids a little bit of a visual of who are the Polynesian people, who are the New Zealand Maori, what do they look like, how do they express themselves through art and music, all these sorts of things to give them a context, because I know that in this year and the previous year, 3rd and 4th grade in Georgia, they've been talking about Native peoples, they've been talking about history, and so this is another chance for me to say, like, there are native people in other parts of the world, and what do those people look like and sound like, and how are their traditions important to them, and how does that relate to Native Americans? What was really cool this week was that as we were talking about the Maori and remembering, like, hey, last time, what did we learn about the Maori? Kids have started saying, like, the Maori people are integrated into New Zealand, and if you went to New Zealand today, you probably wouldn't be able to tell, because a lot of kids would say, like, are they still living, like, wearing loincloths? And I was like, no. And so they said, like, yeah, like the Maori, we remember that you said, you know, they're like plumbers and teachers and politicians and whatever. They're part of the culture. And Native Americans are that way too. We can't, you know, if we walk down the hall, we can't say who's a Native American, who's not, because they're just a part of our culture. They're part of who we are. And, you know, so they make those connections between indigenous people in another part of the world, indigenous people here. And that's super cool. But one of the things I do in this lesson, there are cool videos you can find from the Maori. There are cool explanations or pictures, and you can give them more history and context, because New Zealand's a part of the world they don't know a lot about. At least my kids don't. So and if you're watching from Australia or New Zealand, you're probably like, we don't have to have this conversation, but it's just a fun connection to make. So I do take 5 or 10 minutes at the beginning of class and have those conversations, because that is the national standard of connecting music to history and culture. And if you just say, like, oh, we're doing a song from the New Zealand Maori, and that's it, I don't know if you can say, honestly, we're connecting music to history and culture, because you are just pulling music from history and from culture, and you're injecting it into your school. But if you can't help them make those connections, they won't make the connections. That's lost. So I always try and take just a few minutes, and I feel like it's worth it, to show, like, these are the people we're singing about. This is the thing that we're talking about. This is where it is. Here's what a picture looks like. And give them visual cues and auditory cues and all these things to help them make those connections. But when we get to the actual stick passing clapping, this lesson, there's a lot of remembering what we did before, moving on to more complex versions, and again, and I give them a much longer time. At the end of class, they get about 10, 15 minutes to sing the song, to come up with their own version of the passing, throwing, tossing of the game. And again, I say, like, you can take anything we've already done. You could just do down, click, tap, down, click, tap, down, click, tap. Or you could do down, click, toss, down, click, toss. You can alternate right and left. You can take any of the things we've already done, or you can come up with your own. Just make sure that you and your partner can both do a repeatable pattern by the end of our time, because we're going to show to the class. And at the end of class, we share with the whole group of what our groups have come up with. So it's again a time where they're taking what we've learned before and they're building on it. They're improvising their own creations. And 5th grade is still recapping. We're learning the instruments of the world, the instrument families. In our previous lesson, we did a really deep dive into strings family. I have a whole set of PowerPoints and visuals and things. That's the instrument families. I have it on my Teachers Pay Teacher store, but I compiled all of this years ago because I wanted kids to have a real in-depth way to figure out what instrument goes where and why. Because you can't just say, oh, it's made out of brass, so it's brass. Well, no, there are a lot of other indicators. And one kid today was, because last week was the strings family, this week we're talking about brass family. And one kid was like, what's the saxophone? And I was like, guess what? You'll be able to answer that by the end of this lesson. Oh my gosh, so exciting. And so we went through all the clues, and in this PowerPoint we go through like 5 clues for each family. What makes it that family? And it has to have a rounded mouthpiece where you can buzz your lips. It has to have coiled tubing. It has to have a flared bell, and that flared bell is the only place where air can escape from the tubes. It has to have valves, 3, 4, or 5, no more than 5, because one hand holds the instrument, the other hand does all the moving, so you can't have more than 5 things. I know there's some exceptions, but you can't have more than 5 valves because you only have 5 fingers. All of these little clues that help kids understand it's more than just it's made out of brass. Because even on the clue that is it's made out of brass, I show them a picture of a fiberglass sousaphone. Is it still brass? Yes. Why would they make it out of something that's not brass when brass traditionally, right? Let's talk about that. So all of this goes into more of like critical thinking think about these things. Don't just classify. I mean, it's good if you can do that, but this is going into those core standards of, it's great if you can just say, oh, obviously the trumpet is brass, but can you tell me why it's brass? I'm glad you recall that information, but that is the lowest end of Bloom's taxonomy, is just recall of information. In this same process, can you tell me why? Can you prove to me why this is that family? And so we go through, and I have examples and quizzes and all sorts of stuff in there. But in this lesson, what we do is we go through the rules of why is it in the brass family. We look at several examples. We look at exemplars of that family, and then we watch some fun videos that let us hear it, let us see people actually playing, really wonderful players, and all of that is embedded into this one resource. I started doing this years and years ago, and I was like, why is there not one place to put all of this? So I just compiled it all. I made it into a PowerPoint. I bundle it into a PDF, and there's like just a ton of stuff in this set. But this is week 2. Next week we'll do woodwinds. The following week we'll do percussion. But then we get to try some of this stuff out along the way. I've timed it, I hope, so that our rotations work so that by the time we're done with strings, woodwinds, and brass with percussion to come, the middle school band will come over to do an instrument petting zoo and an instrument fitting that will dovetail hopefully into come join middle school band. So that's what happens in these weeks going forward. So the identification, I take a long time to do that because I think it's important for them to use their critical thinking and also just make all those connections. Okay, cool. That's K through 5 minus second grade. Let me just run you through my second grade lessons and some of the things that I do there. Second grade is one of my favorite grades. I was just talking with a friend who is a classroom teacher who's moving grades, and we talked about how second grade is so much fun because they're smart enough that they can do so much, but they're not old enough that they're like too cool for stuff. They're still kids. They're still young kids, but they're fun. They can take on more. And at this time of year especially, they can really take on quite a bit. So I love second grade. They come in, we do our circle song, we do just a quick attendance, and I do attendance by, this time I'm assessing are they pitch matching, but I sing back and forth to each one. And as I do it, if I give an answer for yes they are, no they're not pitch matching, that's my attendance because I know they're here or not. We do a little bit of solfege, and then I say, you know, there's this this great poem, because in the last lesson we learned Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Oh, there's another nursery rhyme I'm so excited to tell you. Except that it's maybe not the nicest poem, because it's about a little boy who is out playing with his friends. His name was Oliver, and Oliver just, sometimes he made mistakes, he messed up, he had problems, and he came up to his friends and they were playing a new game, and he said, ooh, can I play it? And they said, no, Oliver, just sit out. You won't be able to do this. It's too hard for you. And he said, oh, I'd love to try. Can I please try it? And they said, no, Oliver, you can't do it. You always fall down. You always trip over the ball. You're always having a hard time. Just don't even try it. It's not even worth trying. And he says, oh, but I want to try. And they go, Oliver Twist, you can't do this. What's the use of trying? And he goes, oh, but I want to try. And they say, Oliver Twist, you can't do this. So what's the use of trying? And he says, oh, please let me try. And they go, Oliver Twist, you can't do this. So what's the use of trying? Touch your knees, touch your toes, clap your hands, and over you go. You always fall over, Oliver. And over you go, I have them sort of roll their hands in over their shape. Hand over hand in a rolling shape. So we just repeat this a couple times, and I say, if you're ready, you can try it with me. And we keep the steady beat on the first part, or we do little parroted actions, and then we say the poem. So it goes, Oliver Twist, you can't do this. So what's the use of trying? Touch your knees, touch your toes, clap your hands, and over you go. And then the evolution is we could just change that first action to a steady beat. So Oliver Twist, you can't do this. What's the use of trying? Touch your knees, touch your toes, clap your hands, and over you go. And at this point, they all know it. They can all say it. They can all do the action to say, you know what? I have a challenge. It's probably too hard for you. You probably won't be able to do it. But we are going to do Oliver Twist one more time, and then I'm going to give you a rhythm. I don't think you'll be able to echo it. I think it'll be too hard. But we'll try. You probably won't be able to do it. I mean, why even try? What's the use of trying? You won't be able to do it. And they're like, yes, we can. So we do our Oliver twist. You can't do this, so what's the use of trying? Touch your knees, touch your toes, clap your hands, and over you go. And then I do an echo pattern like this. They clap, 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 clap. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum. Bum, 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 bum. Dun, dun. I go, oh. You can do that. And they're like, yeah, we can. I go, fine, I'll do a harder one. Oliver twist, you can't do this. So then the next time I'll do something like, there you go. And so now instead of just a duple echo, this is a triple echo, which is just a little bit harder. They don't know that, but it is. And we've done mostly duple throughout the year, so this is just the next level of that. And it's a back and forth poem, echo, poem, echo, poem, echo. We do that as long as we want. Sometimes we'll even stand up and we'll stomp, and that's fun too. But it's just a great way to introduce that new way to clap in a non-scary way. Instead of saying like, we're gonna do an echo and it's gonna be harder. Like introducing it with the poem, it just naturally flows in because the meter of the poem works for them, and then it just transfers right into the echo. So it's a fun way to get to that. And I say, I have this really great book I wanted to share with you. Once we're at our stopping point, a really great book I wanted to share with you. Sit somewhere where you can see, and I pull out my book, and then I pull out my little giraffe. And it's just a stuffed giraffe. My brother got it when he went to the zoo, like, I don't know, years and years and years ago. But I stole it, and I still have it. So I say, this giraffe is so much fun, but sometimes, he tumbles. Because giraffes are tall, and giraffes have these very long legs, and these very long necks, and these very big bodies. And especially when giraffes are little, like kids, they fall over and they do things. It just happens because their bodies are sort of sometimes hard to be in control of their bodies. So I've got this great book called Giraffes Can't Dance by Giles Andre. And you might know another book by the same author because we just did our entire second grade concert on Commotion in the Ocean by the same author. And then I read them the book and it goes like this. Gerald was a tall giraffe whose neck was long and slim, but his knees were awfully crooked and his legs were rather thin. He was very good at standing still and munching shoots off trees. But when he tried to run around, he buckled at the knees. Buckled means he fell over. He had an accident. He fell. Now, every year in Africa, they hold the jungle dance, where every single animal turns up to skip and prance. And this year, when the day arrived, poor Gerald felt so sad, because when it came to dancing, he was really very bad. The warthogs started waltzing, and the rhinos rock and rolled. The lions danced a tango that was elegant and bold. Waltzing and rock and roll and, well, not rock and roll, but waltzing and tango, those are special dances that you can learn. They're fancy little dances. The chimps all did a cha-cha with a very Latin feel, and 8 baboons then teamed up for a splendid Scottish reel. Cha-cha and Scottish reel, those are other dances that are very fun to learn. Gerald swallowed bravely as he walked towards the floor. But the lions saw him coming, and they soon began to roar. "Oh, look at clumsy Gerald," the animals all sneered. "Giraffes can't dance, you silly fool. Oh, Gerald, you're so weird." Gerald simply froze up. He was rooted to the spot. "They're right," he thought. "I'm useless. Oh, I feel like such a clot." So he crept off from the dance floor. And he started walking home. He'd never felt so sad before, so sad and so alone. Then he found a little clearing and he looked up at the sky. "The moon can be so beautiful," he whispered with a sigh. "Excuse me," coughed a cricket, who'd seen Gerald earlier on, "but sometimes when you're different, you just need a different song." Listen to the swaying grass and listen to the trees. To me the sweetest music is those branches in the breeze. Imagine that the lovely moon is playing just for you. Everything makes music if you really want it to. With that the cricket smiled and picked up his violin. Then Gerald felt his body do the most amazing thing. His hooves had started shuffling, making circles on the ground. His neck was gently swaying, and his tail was swishing round. He threw his legs out sideways, and he swung them everywhere, and he did a backward somersault and leapt into the air. Gerald felt so wonderful, his mouth was open wide. "I'm dancing, yes, I'm dancing, I am dancing," Gerald cried. Then one by one each animal, who'd been there at the dance, arrived while Gerald boogied on and watched him quite entranced. They shouted, "It's a miracle, we must be in a dream. Gerald's the best dancer that we've ever seen." "How did you learn to dance like that? Please, Gerald, tell us how." But Gerald simply twirled around and finished with a bow. Then he raised his head and looked up at the moon and stars above. "We all can dance," he said, "when we find music that we love." I love this book because it talks about how you can find the courage to do what you want to do and the courage to really try when you find the right sounds. Sometimes a song just doesn't work for you and you need to just find a different song. That's what Gerald did. Can you think of a way that this book connects with the poem that we started with? Why did Oliver Twist remind me of this book? And the kids think, oh, the kids in the poem said, "Oliver Twist, you can't do this, don't even try." And they didn't give Gerald a chance to try either. Poor Gerald. He needed a chance to try. I love this book. Sidebar for all of you, I love this book and I use it for all different things. But this is the first thing we do. In the coming weeks, I'll just quickly show you. I made this resource a couple months ago that has, it's just movement cards to help kids come up with different movements. On one side it has an animal, on the other side it has a picture of a kid doing that animal shape. There are all different animals like ostrich and then sort of fun versions of kids doing them. I especially love flamingo because the little girl does a fun little flamingo. But these cards help kids come up with actions. So in this resource, which is animal movement cards, here I'll show you really quickly. In this resource, it comes with all of these little movement cards and the animal and the kid picture, and then you can use this for kids to come up with their own actions, to create their own actions, to improvise together, to create something that would work based on an animal shape. And in this resource, I include the book and how I do it and the little song that I sang in the middle. This is all in that resource if you're interested. But that comes as a part of the lesson, as this little lesson idea of how you might use it. But in the next lesson, in the coming lessons, I take these cards and they get a little bag of cards and I say, you've got X amount of time and we're going to use Gerald's song, "Listen to the swaying branch and listen to the trees." And they have to use a movement dance based on that. And come up with that on one animal's dance. And it's sort of fun. You can do it all sorts of ways where they have to show it to the class and the kids have to guess what animal it is. How can you create an animal movement dance that matches the animal and is still a dance? So there are a lot of fun things you can do with it. But that's in the lesson after this because we'll remember Gerald's dance and Gerald's story, and then that will connect us through. The last thing is, I talk about how Gerald listened and the things he listened to helped him make his own dance. And I say, I know a story about an old man who walks around town just listening. And he takes a pair of sticks with him and he listens for sounds. Let's listen for a second to see if we can hear anything that's out there that might inspire us. And we just listen to the school for 10 seconds. And we talk about things we hear. We heard the air conditioner, we heard the projectors running, we heard kids in the hallway, we heard the lunchroom, whatever we hear. And I say, this man walked around and he goes like this. He goes, "Ooh, that sounds nice. I wonder what's over here. Oh, that's so very nice. I wonder what's over here. And I walk around the room tapping other things. This old man, they thought he was so weird because he kept going around and he was talking to himself because he had this little poem he would say in his head. Anytime he would tap on something, he'd go, "Knick, knack, paddywhack, give a dog a bone." Every time. He didn't even have a dog. He just kept saying that. "Knick, knack, paddywhack, give a dog a bone." And then he'd go try on somewhere else. "Knick, knack, paddywhack, give a dog a bone." And the other thing that was funny is he lived at the bottom of a hill, so he'd go to the top of the hill, he'd roll down. This old man came rolling home. Yeah, it's so silly. Anyway, it leads us into this old man, right? And so then I just, at school, went online and in 10 minutes or whatever, found some pictures that I can use with this old man to just give us a visual. So the first three, I do this a little bit differently, but the first three, I'll see if I can zoom in here to show y'all this, this little PowerPoint. It's just a little silly thing that I used, just a PowerPoint template and got some pictures in there, but let's see if I can do that. Instagram, I know you don't zoom. I'm so sorry. I'll get out of the way. So this old man, he played 1. He played on my drum. 2, he played on my shoe. 3, he played on my knee. I found this fun little stock image of a kid who like his knee hurt, so he's crying. So 1, 2, and 3, I just introduced to kids. Then on 3, I go, wait. 1, drum. 2, shoe. 3, knee. Those words are connected. How are they connected? We learn, oh, they're rhyming words. So then I say, the next number would have to be 4. Okay, so what rhymes with 4? And I go through all of the answers they can come up with that rhyme with 4. And then what does the PowerPoint choose? Well, the PowerPoint chose door. Okay, so then we sing the song and we do, and at this point I say, if you know the knick-knack paddywhack, try that part. Knick-knack paddywhack, give a dog a bone. This old man came rolling home. So they're patting on their knees as they're singing. They're going through. And for each verse, we think of what number comes next. We think of, what would rhyme with that? 5, I do a hive. So I show them this picture of bees swarmed around a branch. And then I show them what like hives would look like if you are a honeybee. A beekeeper, because I say, like, if you go into the woods or go into the forest and you see these boxes, don't go play with them because it could be bees inside. And they're intrigued by that, so we talk about that a second. And here I'll just show you the other things I use for number 6. I use drumsticks. 7, I don't use heaven. I don't want to get into that. And also, as we're coming up, as we're brainstorming words that rhyme, I always say it can't be a verb. It has to be a noun. It has to be a person, place, or thing, because you have to be able to actually play on it. Right, so when we get to 7, they immediately say Kevin. I'm like, okay, you can go hit Kevin, I guess. But then I say, and some kids will say heaven because they probably heard that version. I say, oh, that's a great idea, but have you been to heaven, or do you know where that is, or can you find that? Because I don't know that I'd ever be able to find it and actually play on it. So maybe we should leave that one out. They're like, okay, yeah, we'll leave that one out. So then we do 7-Eleven, and we say he plays at 7-Eleven. And I joke about how he goes in and he plays on some Takis, and he plays on some Cheetos, and he plays on the cashier, and he plays on the gas pump or whatever. But they like 7-Eleven. They think that's a good answer. 8 is a gate. 9 is the spine, and I have a picture of that to show. So again, this is a tricky one for them as far as vocabulary, so it's fun to bring in that picture. And 10 is a hen. So those are the 10 that we use, and I go through, again, I take the time to let them come up with those rhyming words to see if they can find something that rhymes with the numbers in this old man. And again, I bring out my sticks, and so then at the end of the song, what we do is we go, this old man, he played 1, he played knick-knack on my drum with a knick-knack, paddywhack, give a dog a bone. This old man came rolling home. So it's a steady beat for the first half, and then they actually play on the floor in front of them. You could have them play on whatever, on their knees, you can have them play on a practice pad, you can play them on a xylophone, you can have them explore through that, whatever you want to do, it's totally up to you. But yeah, and then in the next lesson you can bring that back, you can do things with rhythm cards, you could have them clap back rhythms in between each verse. There are so many avenues for what you could do with that, but this lesson sets me up in the next lesson to do more with Oliver Twist, more with the giraffe who can't dance, and then more with the old man. And eventually Old Man goes with Michael Finnegan, they're a partner song, so that'll come in about 2 weeks. Well, I'm so glad that you spent some time with me today to go through these kindergarten through 5th grade lessons, and that you spent this whole year coming along with me. If you're just now joining and you want to go back, this is lesson 30 or week 30. So I did 15 lessons in the fall and 15 now in the spring, and you can watch those videos on YouTube or Facebook. You can listen to them as a podcast. If they're valuable to you, great. As I said at the beginning of the video, I have a quick little survey. It'll take you 3 minutes or less. It's anonymous. If you want to put your name on it, great. Especially if you want feedback. If you're like, I have a question about this specific thing. If you don't put your email, I won't be able to email you because it is anonymous. But if you put your name in the comment at the end, I'll be able to follow up with you. But if you take that quick survey, that would be so super helpful. Thanks so much for joining me this year, and this is the last Musical Mondays, but I hope to be back with other videos soon. Thanks so much for joining me, everyone. Have a great night. Thanks, Facebook Live. It's been so much fun. Thanks again for taking that survey if you're able. And there is a free download at the end if you take that survey, and I really appreciate all your feedback. All right, everyone. Have a great spring semester.